The Gospel reading this morning is only 3 short verses, but there's one word in it which occurs 8 times. Did you pick it up? It's the word welcome. It's a lovely word, isn't it? It's a word that brings feelings of warmth and of acceptance and of stepping into something exciting and inviting. It brings a sense of belonging, a place of being wanted. And these 3 verses are really encouraging, aren't they? Because they come after those strict instructions to the disciples about going out into the mission field where they're going to face risks and uncertainty. And this is going to bring them a lot of encouragement. I expect that we've all at some time or another had that somewhat scary experience of going into a new group or a new class, or perhaps even more scarily a new job, faced with not knowing who we're going to meet. How will we manage? Will it go all right? Will they like me? Will I be able to say what I want to say without making a complete idiot of myself? It's quite challenging, isn't it, when you go somewhere for the first time? Do you shake hands? Do you offer a fist bump? How do you greet somebody new? Kiss each other on the cheek? And even that's fraught with difficulty, is it? 1 kiss, 2 kisses, 3 kisses. My Syrian friends laugh at me because I always forget the 3rd kiss. And then we're all sort of slumbering around trying to work out what to do next. And they, in their turn, are often bewildered. Should they shake hands? Because that's what they told you to in England. Do you kiss a lady's hand? Hug? It's all very challenging, isn't it? And the etiquette rules, which used to be so straightforward, are even more complicated, aren't they, when you add age into the equation. When I was with my grandchildren recently, there was a whole peculiar thing going on with the hands. I had no idea what it all meant and what it was, but you had to do it when you greet your friends. Otherwise, they're not welcome. And the sort of welcome that you receive when you take those first steps makes all the difference in the world to how you feel about a new place or new people, and whether or not you'll go back or ever again feel comfortable in that environment. Coming into church, what makes you feel welcome?
God.
Yeah? Feeling God around you?
Yeah. Jesus.
Is there anything else? Yes? Anything else that makes you feel welcome when you come into church? The church family, indeed, which is what you were talking about just now. Meeting familiar faces, yes? Seeing somebody you know. And that's quite difficult when you're in for the first time, isn't it? Or you don't know people so well. But yes, coming in, seeing people you know, seeing somebody familiar, somebody who's going to speak to you, somebody who's going to smile at you, and maybe offer you a glass of water. Particularly today, there's plenty of water down here, by the way. We have got it ready for you, if you would like it and when you like it. You know, working among refugees from many different cultures, I'm always astounded by the level of hospitality in their welcome. It almost always involves me having to take my shoes off when they go into their homes, and that I'm definitely wanted in because they want me there. And always, but always, food and drink is involved. Even in those homes where there is the least, there is always food and drink on offer. And it's not the shop biscuits that I might have on offer if you come and knock at my door and come in. If someone offers you food and drink, and especially if it's homemade, you do feel welcome, don't you, in that very full sense of the word. The time when Jesus was talking to his disciples and talking about being welcomed was at a time when the messenger was understood to be as important as the person who was sending the message. The original sender, because he was speaking directly on behalf of that original sender. If the message is important, so was the messenger. So if I send a messenger to tell you that you have an invitation to my party, I would expect you to treat my messenger just as if I'd come myself to ask you, because my messenger is carrying my invitation to you. You know, every summer the king has a party, doesn't he, in the garden of Buckingham Palace. It's not quite the same as my back garden, but it is a party. And lots of people are invited to the party. It's very posh and it's very exciting if you get an invitation to it. I never have. It's a great honour to get an invitation to the party. And lots of preparations are needed. You need special clothes. You've got lots of talking about what the Queen might wear, what food might be served, what will happen if the weather gets too hot, or worse, what's going to happen if it rains. And the king can't possibly send out those invitations himself, but it's important that they come from him. So his messengers, those people who get the message out to the guests, are as important as the king. And those messengers need looking after, just as the king. And you, Jesus is telling his disciples, you are as important as me, because you are carrying my message. And whoever welcomes you is also welcoming me, welcoming Jesus. And then comes the big thing. And Jesus, because he is from God, whoever welcomes Jesus is also welcoming God. Well, that's a big thought, isn't it? That when that messenger comes to you, when you hear that message, you are also hearing that message from God. You are welcoming God if you welcome the messenger. Well, who are these messengers who are sent from God? St. Francis, as you know, took this command literally, calling his followers to a literal obedience in Matthew 10. And the rule they followed originally called for them to go out and beg for their food while they went round preaching. And for many, many centuries it was understood that if you responded to holy men going about their work, or holy men going about begging, you were responding directly to God by giving them some food, by giving them a glass of water. It was a direct requirement, it is a direct requirement from God to look after his followers. You are meeting God. And the path of a messenger, though, is not always easy, is it? Ask anyone who's tried to drop leaflets through doors, because even when the message is a good one and an invitation to something nice, you may not always be greeted with glee when you knock on the door. And this being England, it might be pouring with rain as you knock at another door, or push another leaflet through a letterbox, only to be greeted by an unwelcoming glare or a gnarling dog. And have you ever stood outside a church and tried to offer people a free meal or a cup of coffee? We've done that, haven't we, with the hot meals, standing outside with our leaflets and our invitations and asking people and inviting them in. And some do. Some take up the invitation and come in. And then there are others who find the pavement incredibly interesting, or they need to cross the road suddenly because there's something better on the other side of the road. It's not easy being that messenger, standing out there, putting yourself out for God. And I think one of the amazing things about the disciples and about the messengers is that you never know who God's going to call to be his messenger. It's a bit like that lottery advert, you know, that one that's got the fingers pointing down. It could be you. And it could be you. Or it could be that unexpected person round the corner that you sometimes see out walking their dog. Or the new neighbour who actually doesn't yet know the area. Or the asylum seeker. Hebrews 13:2. It tells us to welcome the stranger. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without even knowing it. And remember Abraham? Welcoming the strangers under the oaks of Mamre? With food and drink, unaware that the strangers that he was offering hospitality to, that he was welcoming into his tent, were messengers sent from God. Well, what about Jesus at the well, where the Samaritan woman A stranger, a foreigner, was the one who gave him hospitality and eventually gave him the water that he, a thirsty stranger, needed. Do we have the humility to let other unexpected messengers be messengers to us? Back in 1205, you know where I'm going here, a highly unlikely, somewhat dissolute young man was chosen to hear God's message and charged with taking that message out into the world around him. Now, he was a man who liked partying. He was a man who liked joyfully singing with his friends and being up late at night and drinking hard. Much like a lot of people today, really. Leading quite a dissolute life. He liked partying. He liked going out and battling with them. He liked being with his friends. And unsurprisingly, those who knew him just laughed at him and refused to listen. But there were those who recognised that the message this young man was bringing, that the message Francis was preaching, was truly a message from God. And it wasn't long, as you know, when a band of followers joined him and began following his message in their lives. An unexpected messenger, but these people were prepared and ready to listen and to hear. Because there's a chain reaction, isn't there? That those who serve their fellow human beings out of love for Jesus and are doing it for Jesus, and are so doing, are doing it for God, that cup of water given to a thirsty person is being given to God just as surely as that thirsty human. And in so doing, we become messengers of God, and people will see God in us by our actions of welcome. And by welcoming the messenger, we become more like them, more able to absorb and understand the message ourselves. I don't think the church today is quite as radical in sending out of its priests and messengers, and I think perhaps our safeguarding officers would go completely mad if we sent out our priests with no food, no shoes, no home, no mobile phone. But they are still living a radically different lifestyle, opting for a stipend very often rather than a working wage, dependent on the recognition of their work to deliver God's word. And many of God's workers are unpaid or self-supporting, or volunteers like you and me working for God. So what does that say to us in this family here? What does that say about how we should look after those that are called to minister among us? Are we looking after God's messengers in our church? How do we enable them to be what God is calling them to be? And the response of the listener is as important as the messenger, isn't it? Because by literally responding to God's call and by looking after those that he has called to be his messengers, we become part of that circle, don't we? Whatever we do to support one of God's messengers, even if it's just to offer them a cup of water, we are doing for God, and we are allowing God into our lives. Welcoming is so much more than saying hello and offering a handshake. It's actually the other side as well. It's receiving the message and allowing that message to become part of our lives. You know, watching the news today, you can only be too aware how inhospitable and unwelcoming and polarised this world is becoming, cutting out those of us who don't fit. But God is calling us to witness his hospitality, calling us to be a witness to this hospitality in the communities in which we live and work, carrying and encountering the overwhelming welcome and hospitality of God. Because if we listen and if we welcome God's messengers, if we allow God's message to be a part of our lives, we too become part of Jesus, as he becomes part of us. And we will know the one who sent him. We too will know God, because he will be in us just as we are in him. And that is wonderful news, isn't it?